Hardy School was originally built almost 100 years ago in 1923. It had additions built in 1925 and 1957, and temporary modular classrooms added in 1993 and 1997. The building does not meet the space needs for a 21st century education.
So some of the educational challenges that are presented in a classroom at Hardy include the fact that there are limited outlets, and so we have a teaching wall with a smartboard, and then on the opposite side of the room we have an overhead ladybug document camera, and so the teacher is frequently having to move from the instructional wall off to the other side of the classroom, which can get in the way of teaching. Also, there's limited storage in the classroom environment, and so materials have to be stored outside of the classroom that are needed for instruction. And those are just a couple of the things that create a challenge and interfere with optimal learning conditions here at the Hardy School.
Issues that we talked about at Honeywell in terms of the learning environment, impact to learning, all come into play in this classroom. Again, it's almost 100 years old. Starting with the indoor air quality, unlike Honeywell where we're bringing in fresh air, this is just recirculating the existing air and heating it. So there's no dedicated mechanical ventilation. So the fresh air that comes into this room comes in through the windows and comes in through underneath the doors, the undercutting of the doors. I think you can hear that creakiness there. So that happens throughout this building. In fact, most of the wood floor in the corridors has been covered with carpeting. You notice there's coat racks here, just like we had at the Honeywell School, and that's because there's a lack of space in the classroom to store kids' coats and boots and jackets, etc. And a little further down at the end, you see we have corridor doors that are not fire rated. Again, this is a wood-framed roof, just like Honeywell, and there is no fire protection in terms of sprinkler system in the entire building.
So this is our library, and while it's a beloved space that's brightly colored, it's a relatively small space. So when it comes to having lessons as part of the library class or having students participate in looking for books and the book checkout process, it gets to be pretty congested. Also, because of a lack of storage, when it comes time to doing some using of makerspace materials as part of the STEAM disciplines, all of those materials are housed in a cart. And in Wellesley's mission of promoting 21st century skills, we'd love to have more storage and adequate space to do some of those makerspace activities that we know are so beneficial for students.
Okay, so we're here in one of the lower basement areas at the Hardy. This space doubles as storage for filters, custodial equipment. You can also see some of these drainage pipes here. This section of pipe here was recently replaced. It completely rotted out, which is not surprising because it's, as I said, it's a 100-year-old building. We talked about the bouncy floors, the wood frame floors above us. And much of the 1923, 1925, even the 1957 section has a crawl space below it. As you can see here, this opening in the concrete foundation wall leads to a dirt crawl space that's a couple of feet high. And as I said, this is typical for most of this building. And in that crawl space is a lot of the piping for the heating system, domestic water. So when we have an issue, a maintenance issue, a leak, our custodians, our maintenance staff has to put on a Tyvek suit, a respirator, and literally crawl into that confined space to make the repairs. So now we're up in the attic. Again, very similar to the Honeywell School in that it's wood framed. There's a lot of custodial supplies and storage up here. Again, there's not a lot of additional space throughout the school, so we try to take advantage of whatever we can. It's certainly not ideal. I will point out that it's difficult to move anywhere in the attic area. A lot of planks, and you have to watch your step left and right.
So this is the Hardy Gym, and this space is 2,800 square feet, so it is about half the size of the Sprague Gym that is 6,000 square feet. This space also doubles as our cafeteria. So not having a separate cafeteria creates challenges because from approximately 11 o'clock in the morning till 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the gym has to shut down in order to have lunch service. We think about lunch service, we have a small kitchen area that really is the equivalent of a closet. And what happens is as soon as that PE class finishes right before 11, the custodians come in, they wheel out multiple components, and they set up a serving line, tables get put down, lunches are served, and then cleanup quickly everything gets put back and then resumes as a functioning gym for PE classes.
So here we are in the psychologist's office, and you can see it's very small, cramped space. And this is pretty indicative of a lot of spaces in the HHU schools. These are converted storage areas, converted closets, because there is not enough space in the schools. These spaces are converted to offices or educational spaces. So as we step out, you realize that there is no ventilation for that room. In fact, the ventilation is achieved in this room and the adjacent room through what's called a through-wall louver. So basically the air, the ventilation that you get out here in the corridor where we are, is what they get in the office. There's no definite mechanical system. And that's also further supplemented by this exhaust fan that we have added above the doors.
We're in our modulars, and this is our English language learner and occupational therapy shared space. And again, being in the modulars, Joe talked about some of the challenges of the modulars as part of the Honeywell video, and in thinking about how things work in terms of an educational perspective in this space, having to have shared space with partitions that don't go up to the ceiling. There's just a lack of privacy, and so noise travels. Confidentiality is a concern, as we have English language learners here that are focused on learning the English language, having occupational therapy happening a few feet away. That sound travels, and that interferes with some of the learning that is taking place.
Upham School was built 64 years ago, and since that time has had 2 additions, including 2 21-year-old portable classrooms intended for a much shorter period of use. Upham also has outdated electrical systems, which make it difficult to support new technology needed in today's classrooms.
So we're going to go into one of our rooms. It was a storage room at one point, so if you'll walk in this way, we've now converted the storage room. It doesn't have any ventilation. The acoustics in here are really bad, and there's no heat in here, although it does heat up from the hallway, ambient hallway heat. But we converted this into one of our rooms to help with interventions for our autism spectrum classrooms. So as you can see, it's very small. We call it the kitty cat dinosaur classroom because the dinosaur looks like a kitty cat, but we've tried to dress it up the best we can, but it was a storage room at one point, and now we use it. So you can see some of the challenges that we have for this space.
This is the 1957 original wing, so this is a 64-year-old classroom. The building deficiencies impact the learning environment. Things like indoor air quality, glare, things that impact students' ability to concentrate and be successful. To my left, you can probably hear the unit ventilator. That's the 1957 device that provides heating and ventilation for the entire classroom. It relies on an exhaust that is actually tucked up into the closet, the coat closet over here. Looking at the windows, these are single pane steel windows, metal windows. You can see we actually had to put in some temporary insect screens in that open window because during COVID we were unable to provide the amount of ventilation we needed, and we need to have the ability to open the windows for additional fresh air, so we had to install those insect screens. One of the issues that we run into in all of the elementary schools is storage, whether it's cabinetry, millwork, casework, shelving. You can see there's just not enough space to store what needs to be stored here in the classroom.
As you can see behind me, we have our stairwell. We are not ADA compliant on any level here, and this is not our only level. We have another set of stairs. That impacts us because we have, for all of our specials, for art, music, PE, library, we have to use carts throughout the building, and so that it really impacts our ability to meet the needs of children in their classrooms. Our furniture needs really impact the way we present our educational facilities here. The furniture is very old. We have updated some of it, but due to the building being slated to closing, that has been a very steep hill for us to climb because of purchasing ability, of not wanting to add to the building as we think of closing it. This is our multi-purpose room. We use this for our gym. We also use it as our CAF, and we also have a space, our OT-PT space. And to schedule this is a big conundrum for us to be able to. We have to shut the gym down for 2 hours each day. We're going to be having some kids here in a few minutes to come in get their lunch and then head out for lunch. And then after that, custodians must clean up. It takes them about 20 minutes to take the tables out, clean up, and get prepared for the gym for PE the remainder of the day. So this is our space for our OT-PT. And what we had to do in order to meet our DESE standards, we had to develop a space for our occupational therapy and our physical therapy spots. As you can see in here, we've taken cubicle walls that FMD did and developed a space for us to be able to provide our OT and PT for our students on the autism spectrum.
Here we are outside the mods. I'd like to point out we renovated these mods 5 years ago, but you can already see the Texture 111 starting to degrade, and this is typical. These are temporary mods. They were never intended to be here for 30 years. What I'd also like to point out is the grade separation from the original building, the 1957 building, up to the mods. And we saw the stairs, the lack of elevator, or lack of a chairlift, and this really demonstrates the challenges of trying to access different points of this building. Again, these are 1993 vintage, just like the other mods at Hardy and Honeywell. These were temporary mods intended to address fluctuations in enrollment, but they're almost 30 years old now. We've made some cash capital repairs over the years, replaced the windows, replaced the carpet. This is another one of the quote-unquote multi-purpose rooms that we have at the HHU schools. There's actually 3 people that work in here. There are offices, PE, IT people, and it's also the IT data room. You can see that the hardware for the entire IT structure in the building is maintained here. And then we have some storage in the back. So this is space that was not intended for occupancy. It was really storage space converted, and the IT equipment requires protection and cooling, and as a result of the cooling needed for the IT data, the people that work in here tend to be pretty cold.
The new Hardy School, constructed in partnership with the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or MSBA, will be an 18-classroom school with additional spaces that could be reconfigured to serve as a 19th classroom in the case of a bubble year, with a design enrollment of 365 students. The design also includes purpose-built spaces for the district-wide skills program. Upon completion of the new Hardy School building, town-wide redistricting will occur and the Upham School will close. If detailed design and construction funding is approved at special town meeting in October and at the town-wide debt exclusion vote in December, construction on Hardy will start in 2023 and be completed by September of 2024. The advisory committee has voted unanimously to support this project. More information on Hardy is available at wellesleyhhu.org.